Welcome to Adventure Life with Bob. This adventure starts a new section for us entitled Cruises and Tours. We've cruised many times, but this will be the first time we've done it since starting our YouTube channel. This particular tour is a Mississippi River cruise along with Branson, Missouri. We booked it through Fun for Less Tours out of Salt Lake City, Utah. Be sure to watch the end of this video where Laura and I will sit down and talk about our impressions of Fun for Less Tours, the American Queen, and Branson, Missouri. Our first stop is New Orleans. New Orleans is a consolidated city parish located along the Mississippi River in the state of Louisiana. New Orleans is world-renowned for its distinctive music, Creole cuisine, unique dialects, and its annual celebrations and festivals, most notably Mardi Gras. The historic heart of the city is the French Quarter, known for its French, Spanish, and Creole architecture, and vibrant nightlife along Bourbon Street. The city has been described as the most unique in the United States, owing to a large part to its cross-cultural and multilingual heritage. Additionally, New Orleans has increasingly been known as Hollywood of the South due to its prominent role in the film industry and in pop culture. I have always been interested in the cemeteries in New Orleans. They are called the cities of the dead. Not only do they have tombs that look like buildings, but the cemeteries are organized with streets, much like the living. These tombs can hold many, many people. A body is placed inside, and then after a year, and when another person dies and is to be entombed, they use a long pole to push their remains into a receiving pit underneath, and the new body is put in. This particular tomb has over 300 nuns and one priest buried in it. We next went looking for alligators. Located only about 25 minutes from New Orleans is the Jean Lafette National Historic Park and Preserve, and the Jean Lafette Swamp and Airboat Tours took us out to explore the Louisiana backcountry with its bayous and abundant wildlife and exotic plants. We found several alligators, and Laura got up close and personal with one of these little babies. If you're in New Orleans, the National World War II Museum is a must-see. It's one of the top destinations in New Orleans and an unforgettable way to experience World War II, from industrial efforts on the home front to the combat experience of the American service member abroad, offering a compelling blend of sweeping narratives and poignant personal detail. The museum features immersive exhibits, multiple media experiences, an expansive collection of artifacts, and first-person oral histories to take visitors inside the story of the war, why it was fought, how it was won, and what it means today. As a veteran of conflict in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, Bosnia and Kosovo, Iraq and Afghanistan, I found this museum absolutely fascinating, and I think you will too. We are on the American Queen, and we are about ready to do a 7-day river trip up the Mississippi. And so we're going to take you along with us. Hopefully we'll have a good time. And in just a couple of minutes, we should be shoving off from the pier. The American Queen is said to be the largest river steamboat ever built. The ship was built in 1995 and is a 6-deck recreation of a classic Mississippi riverboat. It was built by the McDermott Shipyard for the Delta Queen Steamboat Company. Although this American Queen stern paddle wheel is indeed powered by a steam plant, her secondary propulsion, in case of an emergency and for maneuverability around tight areas where the paddle wheel could not navigate, comes from a set of diesel-electric propellers known as Z-drives, on either side of the stern wheel. She has 222 staterooms for a capacity of 436 guests and a crew of 160. She's 148 feet long and 89 feet wide. The first stop on our journey was Nottoway Plantation. Nottoway is the South's largest, most glorious remaining antebellum mansion with a rich history dating back to 1859. In a fabulous location along the Great River Road overlooking the Grand Mississippi River, this White Castle of the South transports visitors back to an era of glory and grandeur. Set amongst a natural backdrop of vibrant gardens and 200-year-old oak trees, the Nottoway Plantation captivates all with a brilliant blend of true Southern hospitality, history, and mystery. Now, that's what the brochure says, and I guess in many ways it was, but as I walked through this and many other plantations and mansions, it was very clear to me all these were built on the backs of slaves, which this institution of slavery I find absolutely despicable. That evening, they did give us a glorious send-off, complete with fireworks, and we continued our way up the Mississippi. Cruising up the Mississippi, I had visions of Mark Twain and his books Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. We were supposed to put in at Francisville, but because of low waters, we put in at Baton Rouge, Louisiana. As a retired sailor, I was thrilled to see that the U.S. Kidd Memorial was right next to where our boat moored for the day. The USS Kidd is a Fletcher-class destroyer. It was the backbone of the USS Destroyer Force in World War II. It was respected by all navies for her versatility. She was equipped to attack surface vessels of all sizes, as well as submarines and aircraft. She provided vital firepower for shore invasions, and all of her equipment is on this ship for our inspection. The Kidd has been restored to its her wartime camouflage paint, to be used for the invasion of Japan. The combat colors caused the ship to blend in with the sky above the horizon and the sea below. The Kidd was launched in February of 1943. Her missions in World War II brought her to Wake Island, Rabaul, the Gilbert and Marshall Islands, landings on Bougainville, and Guam. She also participated in the invasion of the Philippines. The Kidd was also part of the air defense screen in Okinawa. And on April 11th, 1945, attempting to cope with the furious kamikaze attacks, a lone enemy penetrated the outer defenses and, despite being hit, crashed into the USS Kidd, killing 38 crewmen and wounding 55. She earned 8 battle stars across the Pacific, and in Okinawa survived the most intense anti-air warfare environment in history, one in which over 5,000 sailors lost their lives. The Kidd is named in honor of Rear Admiral Isaac C. Kidd, Sr., who was killed aboard his flagship, the Arizona, during the surprise attack at Pearl Harbor. This old sailor enjoyed being back on a gray bottom. Being on a steam-powered paddle boat was a great experience for this old sailor, and envisioning what it was like 100 years ago to go up and down the river. But things have changed, and there are a lot of bridges that didn't used to be there. And since this boat is a replica of what used to be, there's some challenges it had, like its big smokestacks. And this is how they got underneath the bridges. The smokestack went just lowered, and when we got past the bridge, it'd go right back up again. It was also interesting to see us encounter some intense fog as we were making our way up the river. The next couple of days we spent visiting Natchez, Mississippi, and then also Greenville, Mississippi. And the American Queen has an interesting way of seeing these cities. They have what they call hop-on, hop-off excursions. They're included at every port and operate really like a well-oiled machine. And it caters to everyone because you can get off whenever you want and spend as much time as you'd like at each one of these locations. There are guided tours at the plantations and at museums, or you can just walk through at your own pace. And you always know that every 15 minutes another bus is going to come by and pick you up and take you to the next destination. And they're very good about reminding you to get back on board the boat before it cruises. In the town of Natchez, we went to many mansions, or several of them. Cotton is what made Natchez wealthy. In 1860, it was the richest city in the United States. Plantation owners often maintained homes here, and they were spared during the Civil War when the town surrendered to Farragut's fleet. Many of the plantations have been restored, and we were able to go through them. Natchez under the Hill, the neighborhood at the bottom of the bluff where we tied up with the American Queen, was notorious during the steamboat days. Violence and vice attracted the rough adventurers from the boats on the river, but the location kept the behavior isolated from the town's more prominent citizens. Once a noisy and thriving area, under the hill now is reduced to just one street called Silver Street. The steamboat also stopped in Vicksburg, which is the site of the famous siege, forcing the Confederate Army to surrender on July 4th, 1863. Laura and I had toured Vicksburg just a couple of years ago, and so we did not take the tour bus there, but instead just walked around and enjoyed kind of a leisurely day. Greensville is a fun little town, and it's really the heart and soul of the Mississippi Delta. It's located on the banks of Lake Ferguson. Greenville is a short drive to Indianola, the birthplace of B.B. King and many other blues singers. So naturally it has its own fair share of blues integrated into its culture. Many authors and writers were born or reside here. So many, in fact, that the local legend says that Greenville water grows writers. This is a Hebrew temple, and the people there allowed one of our fellow tourists to play the organ, and they played an old LDS hymn. Upon arriving in Memphis, Tennessee, our first stop was the National Civil Rights Museum, which has a mission to share the culture and lessons from the American Civil Rights Movement and explore how this significant era continues to shape equality and freedom globally. The National Civil Rights Museum is located at the former Lorraine Hotel, where civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on April 4th, 1968. Through interactive exhibits, historic collections, dynamic speakers, and special events, the museum offers visitors a chance to walk through history and learn more about this tumultuous and inspiring period of change. No visit to Memphis is complete without visiting Graceland. That's 120 acres dedicated to the life and career of the American legend Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. You get to see gold records, jeweled jumpsuits, classic cars, and interactive exhibits. Graceland is also much more than just a mansion. It's the private retreat of the king of rock and roll. It's where his family grew up, spent their time together, and enjoyed life together. Today, you can visit the Presley home, Graceland Mansion, and immerse yourself in his life and the legacy of Elvis Presley. Our last stop was Branson, Missouri. It's famous for its role in the entertainment industry. Branson, Missouri is an amazing place to visit. This city has a population of around 11,000 and is home to nearly 50 theaters, several theme parks, 3 major lakes, hundreds of shows and attractions, restaurants, shopping ravines, and draws about 7 million visitors each year. We saw 11 shows in 4 days. We saw the hits of the 60s, the Haygood Christmas Show, the Cassandra Voice of an Angel, the Dutton Experience, Clay Cooper Christmas Show, the Hughes Brothers Christmas Show, the Petersons, the illusionist Rick Thomas, and then last night we were there, we saw Jesus at the Sights and Sounds Theater, which was just absolutely phenomenal. And I strongly suggest you go. Laura and her friends got caught up in the excitement of the entertainment industry, and we started calling them the Rainbow Sisters. Our last day in Branson, we went to the award-winning theme park called Silver Dollar City. It's got 40 thrilling rides and attractions, 40 entertaining shows daily, and an exciting look back into the 19th century culture of the Ozarks, as the park is modeled after an 1800 Ozark town. It was quite fun, and it was decked out for Christmas, and the lights were phenomenal. I think I read somewhere there was like 6 million lights in their displays, and that's easy to believe. The highlight of the evening was the lighting of their giant Christmas tree.
One time, are you ready to light this tree? Yeah! Here we go.
Well, that's our trip, our Mississippi River trip in Branson. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to kind of critique our little trip. Before we start, I just want everyone to know we get nothing from these companies. We pay our normal rate, we go, and then we tell you what we think. So I think to start off, why don't you tell us what you think about Fun for Less?
Fun for Less is a tour company out of Salt Lake City. I've traveled with them several times. I think that they are a really good outfit to do what they set out to do. And I do think it's a pretty good value for your money. But you got to keep in mind, it is a tour company. And so you've got a lot of people on the tour. I've been on some that have had 3 bus loads, 4 bus loads, and then there's some that will have 1 or 2. From my experience, the average age is over 70, but people who love to travel and who just want a little bit of someone kind of helping them with it.
And it is encouraging to see people older than us still traveling.
Oh, there were definitely people in their 80s traveling. The company, takes care of everything from start to finish as far as transporting and transferring your luggage, your airfare, all the excursions you do. But you are being shepherded around like a herd. And that's okay if that's what you know what to expect. What I do like is I have to do no thinking about what we're going to do when we get to a certain place. They've got it figured out. I think from their experience, they've kind of figured out what the average person, senior person, would enjoy at any destination. And so that's good. I don't have to think. If I do think, it can be a problem sometimes because we may not go to do what I discovered might be what I want to do. But overall, pretty happy with their excursions.
And I will point out that Laura, in a previous life, was a travel agent. She has put some trips together for just the two of us that have been phenomenal. But it's a lot of work for her, a lot of work. And so going with a tour company like Fun for Less can be interesting and relaxing and not a lot of work. So let's talk about the American Queen, the boat we went on. What were your feelings on that?
I've been on a lot of ocean cruises, on a lot, maybe at least 4 of the major cruise lines. This is my first time on a river cruise. I know they're very popular in America and in Europe. My first thing to say would be don't try to compare them because they're not apples to apples. The American Queen ship was beautiful, very period oriented as far as the furniture. They had the Mark Twain room. Obviously had the big paddle wheels on it. There were way less people than I'm used to. I think there were maybe 250 on board. The rooms, the cabins are definitely tiny, but comfortable, and I'm okay with that. We took an inside cabin, which we normally don't do, but for our week, I thought it was perfectly fine. There were some people that we know that had some cabin issues with maintenance problems and so forth. The company seemed to be responsive to take care of things. So the service on the ship, like I said, was friendly and nice, but I think they were very inexperienced, and you could really tell it. I think probably a lot of it's because of COVID, and they haven't been running for a year and a half, and they're just getting back. You've got a lot of inexperienced staff, and you could tell. Dining room could be super slow, even up to 2 hours for a dinner. So yeah, I hate to be harsh on it, but it was probably the worst part of the ship. But I think over time that could get better. As far as the food, overall I would say good. Some were better than others. Presentation was really pretty. I don't think anything was over the top great, but then again, nothing was horribly bad. I do know there were times when people might get cold food, and I think that's because of the serving problem and with the staff. Desserts were good, really good. So we can leave that. Upstairs there was a buffet, and nothing like you would find on a major cruise line, but they did offer, I'd say maybe a third of the items off of the regular dinner menu in the main dining room.
Okay.
Let me think. The entertainment. I thought the theater was really nice and cozy and good. Everything was a good seat. They had a group. There were 4 that were the main performers on the stage, and then they had a really good little band, and then they were, I think, maybe 3 or 4 guys who did the piano music, the guitar music, the banjo music, and they would kind of move around at the different little the different little places at night when people like to sit around and listen to music. So I would say the music was pretty good, and the shows were fine. I mean, nothing over the top. I think a lot of people that we saw this entire trip were maybe a little bit past their prime, but
The performers?
Yeah, but still have the opportunity to have an audience and have a stage and do what they love to do. And so that was fine. I'm not a great judge of all that kind of stuff. And we went, not every night, but most nights we went.
Now, the stops on the river, I'm just gonna read them real quick, and you can tell me if there's anything that popped out of your head. We went to Nottoway. We did not go to Francisville because of the low river, water in the river. So we went to Baton Rouge, and then Natchez, Vicksburg, and Greenville. And a lot of plantations, a lot of mansions. Any comments on the...
Well, they do provide an on and off bus at each stop. It's included in your fare. I might also add drinks are totally included in your fare, alcohol and non-alcohol. The only extra charge we had was gratuities. But the hopping on buses were included. I wasn't sure how I'd like them, but I overall was pretty happy with them. Most of the time they had a person on there making commentary as we drove around the little town. These were all little towns. There's not a ton of things to see. So I thought the way it went was perfectly fine. They did, usually each stop would offer one premium tour that you would pay extra for, and they would take you off to see something. The towns were just little southern towns.
And you can tell she's a southern girl.
Yep. So a lot, a very historical kind of feel to the tour, as far as the homes you went into. A lot of museums that are preserving the history of the area.
Okay, a couple issues on the boat. Probably I think it was the second night. The staff was pounding on everybody's door to do a wellness check. And I at first thought, is this a new COVID thing? But it turned out one of the staff had fallen overboard, and unfortunately, as far as we know, they never found him
Or
her. We're not sure. They were pretty tight-lipped about it. But it kept us in port, I think, an extra hour or two. The Coast Guard was looking, sheriffs were there. Really feel bad about that. And then we went up to Greenville, spent the day there. And then that night we pulled off from the shore, went up the river for maybe 10 minutes, and it turned right around and went back right where we were. And the captain got on and said that there had been an accident upstream, some barges had run into each other, and that we would be stuck there for a couple of days. We would not be able to get to Memphis. And so the next day, we spent another day in Greenville, and then they brought buses down and took us up to Memphis. And so why don't you talk about your Memphis experience?
Okay, Memphis. I don't know that I've ever been there before. Maybe I've driven through. The two places we went were the Civil Rights Museum and Graceland. I thought they were both really good tours. The only problem I had was that back again, when you're with a group tour, you are on their time schedule. And so you felt a little rushed. I could have spent more time in the Civil Rights Museum. I thought it was an amazing museum and a lot of history, and I would have loved to have spent more time there.
Because growing up in the South, you lived through that.
Yeah, I lived through it, and so it was really a well done museum, and so I would have preferred more time there. Graceland, I was not a huge Elvis Presley person. I know he's historical in the music world. The house was beautiful. It totally remains looking the same way it did when he died, and so that just takes you back to your childhood and the decor and all that. But so it was a good tour. Then we headed up to Branson. I'd never been to Branson. I know a lot of people that have. We did a lot of shows. I will say Fun for Less, I thought, did an excellent job in prearranging all our shows. We had the best seats for every one of them. And so that was really nice. But starting the show at 9:30 or 10 in the morning is a little early for me to be going to a show. But overall good. Like, he said earlier, some of the shows were amazing and we'd definitely do it again. And others, it's like, no, one time was okay. I think we were there actually probably in the town at really good, because I've been told the traffic there is horrendous and we had no traffic. But then again, we're kind of in between Thanksgiving, Christmas, and there just wasn't so much traffic. So that made it really, really nice.
We saw 11 shows in 4 days. That's a lot. But there was three or four we thought were just definitely worth looking and watching again.
I'd say the Haygoods.
Haygoods was outstanding.
The Hughes family.
Mm-hmm. Clay Cooper.
And Clay Cooper. Those were probably our three favorites. We did see The Illusionist. We did see some other things. And they were, none of them really were bad.
And then the last show we saw, did you have...
it was the Jesus Christ show.
At the Sights and Sounds Theater.
The theater was phenomenal. It could compete with any show in Vegas or anywhere else. It was amazing, the show. The theater was huge, and just a big production. It is put on by a Christian, I think a Christian family started it. And so they are trying to, testify of Jesus as part of their, personal feelings. That was fine. So I would just say it was a really great show. It
was. But if you like our channel, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to our channel and hit the little bell off to the side, so you're notified of when we're posting another video. And thank you for watching.